All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 76 of the Dadsined podcast. It is the week before Thanksgiving. I am patiently waiting for Christmas music for the day after for Black Friday. I'm a very staunch supporter of the turkey and do not listen to any of that beforehand. However, our house is full of Christmas stuff because my wife is organizing my kids' schools. What is it? Giving tree thing. So we've snuck that in. That's an important thing that it's been cool to see her and the kids get that together. But I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving and then Christmas after that.
You mentioned the Christmas music. Do you have strong feelings on when it's okay to start watching Christmas movies, listening to Christmas music, putting up your lights or tree?
Are you being sarcastic right now? I thought you were. So you had me there for a minute. If you're listening to the podcast, Devin did a great job of tricking me into thinking that he didn't know that I had extremely strong feelings about when to do Christmas stuff. In fact, funny story, my wife brings home these two Christmas themed soap things, like the push soap things.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, I can't get these open. Will you get them open? I said, no, they don't open till the day after Thanksgiving. She goes, they're on sale. I said, yeah, swim trunks are on sale too because it's not the right season.
I like it. No, I knew exactly what I was doing with that question. We're kind of the same around here, so that's good. I figured I had to throw it in. You were mentioning the Christmas music after Thanksgiving, so I had to throw it in.
Don't get me wrong. I'll crank it up on Friday.
That's right.
I mean, with the best of them. I
Absolutely.
love Harry Connick Jr., James Taylor, Christmas songs.
Yeah.
James Taylor, Go Tell It on the Mountain. Hallelujah. That thing's fantastic.
Right.
Anyway. If you want to tell us about your favorite Christmas carol, do it in 2 weeks on our next show. In the meantime, check out the hashtag Dads and Ed. You can tweet at us anytime at Dads and Ed on the Twitters. Shoot us an email, dadsanded@gmail.com. If you're a part of the show, check out our website, dadsanded.com. Subscribe in iTunes, Google Play by searching Dads and Ed. Check out the Education Podcast Network. Fantastic shows on that network. We are proud to be part of that. Check them out at edupodcastnetwork.com. So not really breaking news. It's been hinted for a while, but in this past week. Oh, wait. Hold on. We're missing something. Catlet's not here.
He's not.
No.
I thought we were just going to fly by that.
Yeah. I was going to. He's missed 2 out of the last 3. So, and for those of you, we got a message saying he was at a skating party. We're not sure if it's a work function, work sanctioned skating party, or how that goes. But hopefully Catlet's going to be joining us here shortly.
And, oddly enough, I can picture him being one of those, 70s skater guy,
I do have a picture of him with a mullet.
I know, and we've used that for good purposes, but I can kind of see him out on a skating rink with the music playing and the disco ball, him spinning around and falling down and
staying alive.
Seems like that would be really fun to watch, but
hopefully we can ask him about that.
I'm hoping we can. I'm hoping he gets here so I can ask him about this skating party.
If you want any skating tips, feel free to hit up Catlet at Catlet1. That's CATLETT and the number 1. Anyway, fortunately for you, if you have skating questions, you can actually ask more than one now in Twitter, because over this last week or so, speak of the devil.
Man, just
Catlet, hey. Not sure if you were watching, but we'll fill you in real quick. We were actually trying to think of what your favorite song is to skate to on the skating rink.
Oh, boy.
Did you don the afro?
They had the couple skate tonight. It brought me way back, to Days of Tiffany.
Yeah.
Wow, calling out the junior high girlfriend. Nice.
She was great.
I just assumed I assume you're the guy that's out there spinning around and doing the limbo and.
They had that going tonight, and I can officially tell you I did not have skates on.
Oh, smart.
I know some limits, and I couldn't do the backwards thing. No thanks. I could skate like a boss, but I could never do the backwards thing or spins and all that stuff.
It's not one of those things like NFL contracts, you know, where there's like certain things you can't do. Is that in your Apple contract, like no skating allowed, so that you can fully carry an iPad with two hands?
That's right. That's right. The fine details.
I can the skating, since we're doing skating stories. I've done ice skating once. The problem with it was the only way to stop for me was run directly into the wall. So that was the last time I played that game.
Oh, I don't skate. I tried back in the day. The kids my wife can do it. So fortunately we've generally had a small enough kid that someone had to sit back with them. So I volunteer for that. Somebody's got to take one for the team and sit on the sidelines. That's me. I'm your guy. Oh, hey, so Callet, we just encourage people to send their skating questions your way, because now that Twitter has extended its character limit to 280 characters, they could ask you more than one question in a row. So this has been a big discussion in the technology world. Twitter for a long time has limited you to 140 characters. Then they went down the road where wasn't the next thing like picture links didn't count in your character limit, and then usernames didn't count in your character limit, and now they have doubled the character limit. Someone I saw today, I want to say it was Darren Draper, a great educator out of Utah. It's kind of like your dad can wear 32-inch pants, but usually he buys 34, but we're just going to go and wear 36 just because we can. And he's like, it just kind of, that's, it just has expanded and you got comfortable with it. So your guys' thoughts on the move from 140 to 280? Devin, what do you think?
I guess I'm probably in the camp that doesn't necessarily love it.
That's a big camp, I feel like.
I think so too. I feel like I'm not going out on a limb saying this, but the great thing about Twitter always was in part the brevity, and figuring out how am I going to say this and what am I going to say and how do I do it with some sort of succinct language. And it feels like by giving up on that you just become like everything else. So I don't know. I mean, it's not like, I'm not taking a stand and saying, I'm only going to do 140, Right. I think I saw somebody today, maybe it was Alice Keeler, somebody tweeting, you see the little bar, only go to halfway. You don't need to go any further. Like, I don't know. I'm not going that far, but I think I would have preferred to have stuck to 140.
Maybe we should create something that we can sell that you hold up to your screen that shows you right when you reach that 140 character limit. It's like a little cutout that you put up over that little bar. We could make millions off that thing.
Right, but I'm also not like a Twitter snob enough to say, anybody who's using 280 is not a true Twitter user. Like, I'm not doing that.
Friend of the show, Jim York, checking in on the. He is also in the same camp as you, Devin, on the 140 camp. Catlet, your thoughts?
I had to say, it just doesn't really matter to me. I guess at the end of the day, I think because 7 years later, using the tool for connections across the globe, like it's really about the connections and people so much as it is whether I can get in 140 characters or more. I mean, I'll admit there's times where I wonder, I'm kind of curious. Like I was thinking about how many times I've cut like YOU to you and your to you are, and some of those things where like if I was just spelling that out grammatically correct, would I be at 160? I don't know. Am I going to use the entire thing? Probably not, because I think the habits we've all formed getting into 140 is probably a good thing. Like say, you're more succinct, you're more concise with what you want to say, and you're done. and that's probably a good thing for some people. I don't consider myself someone that like would run on in a tweet, but I suppose now I do have that chance, which is probably dangerous for some people. Maybe me, I don't know. But I can't say I do a whole lot of tweeting as much as I used to, right? It's a very, I don't know, I don't know, calculate is the right word, but I'm either connecting with somebody I know or sharing out an article, blog post, something. But it's not usually this long drawn out thing, you know? I never liked when people would do the like, forget, you guys could help me with this, where there's like part 1, part 2, part 3 kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I just always was like, what the heck, you know, like take that somewhere else, like write it on a blog post and share it on Twitter or something, you know?
Yeah, you know, I guess I would say that though. I kind of have, I'm kind of to a point where I kind of like those, you know, especially when they end up getting almost created as kind of a story, like an individual story. If it was a blog post, I could think of some things, and specifically with regards to like politics, but where I'll see this kind of stream of tweets, and I probably wouldn't have clicked on the link to the blog post, but I do kind of read through all of their, you know, how they've kind of created that story in Twitter. So for me, I guess it would be, you know, I'm not going to click on every one of those to a blog post, whereas I have read some of them on Twitter. So I don't know.
That's a good
where
point.
I fall on that.
All right, one unintended benefit that I found is that we have an if this then that recipe, or applet, I guess it's called now, for our Instagram account for the school district. And so anytime we post to Instagram, it automatically goes to Twitter. And that used to be just a pain to have to figure out if I reached the 140 characters or not. And so I'd have to go delete the post and then redo it so that it links back to our Instagram account. And you know, that's allowed for some extra flexibility there when we're creating an Instagram post, since Instagram doesn't show you a character limit. But that's one nice feature that I like about it. But
yeah, and I would say that, you know, Brent mentioned it earlier, that if I just had the number of characters where I didn't have to do a U instead of YOU or UR, like I just don't do those things. I hate that in texting or tweets. So if I just had enough characters so that I didn't have to do that, I think I'd be fine with that. So that kind of straddles that line a little bit, where I'm saying, you know, I prefer 140, but boy, sometimes 148 would be awesome.
Exactly.
Changing the subject to another social media. Did you see Instagram came out with a live with 2 people where you could like invite somebody? I did this with Craig Badura the other night.
I watched that.
It was
not live, but I watched it later.
Yeah, it's like kind of cool. I just got on one of those days, you know how they have their little update thing, and I was like, this is pretty awesome. And I just hollered at Craig. I was like, hey, you want to jump on with me and try this one time? And because I've never done much of the live stuff on any of the social media, but I thought I like what we're doing. I've always enjoyed this, and so I thought I just wanted to test it out, and I thought that's kind of cool. It was easy. Craig jumped on, he invited me in, and boom, we were up and running. What we found is he couldn't, like, we had written ourselves some questions kind of prior to. I was in another city at the time in a hotel, but anyway, I had written out a couple questions and sent those to Craig, and then he sent some to me. When he would jump out to go look at those, like, it would kind of like just pause him. I was still live, I believe. I don't know what that looked like on the other side, but like, anyway, he was like, well, he can't, because he would just kind of go like pause blank, and then he would come back when he was trying to kind of basically multitask between 2. But anyway, I thought that was kind of a powerful little, it's interesting to watch the social media sites like tweak and change and add these new wrinkles and things, kind of trying to, like, you know, vie for supremacy, I guess. In Instagram kind of upped the game there with the 2 people at once.
Hoover Phys Ed chiming in, loving it. Sometimes crafting what you want to say. Hold on. Split up into 2 tweets is hard. Less finagling, more tweeting. Pretty sure they went over 140 characters in their tweet, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I think that is a good point. I think, you know, like you guys mentioned, if you have 146 characters that you want to put in there, it gives you that little flexibility. And I think you're right, Brent. I think it is fascinating to watch kind of that back and forth between the different platforms, and who can out innovate the other. I think we're kind of at a point where it's a little bit of copycat going on. Mm-hmm. I don't know that there is any major. Well, I say there hasn't been much new lately, but I think that lately gets smaller and smaller because live video from your phone is what, 3 years old? I mean, I don't know how long Facebook Live has been around, if that. I know we did one last fall.
Yeah, it's been a couple years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, you had, your Periscopes, and Meerkat was the other one, but I do think it is kind of fascinating to watch, how some of these things evolve. And I think how some things stay the same. Hashtags on Twitter are just as popular now as what they've ever been. I mean, you see recovery efforts. We obviously use Dads and Ed, which is just a cool thing to follow along with. Peachy Chat, if we're talking about parent stuff. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of ways. We're trying to do it in our own school district to get more of the community to use our hashtag and do some things around that. That's something that's been around forever. I mean, Brent, York Dukes. I mean, man, how long has that thing been around? It's been almost since the beginning of Twitter. That York Public Schools has been a model for how you use and bring your community together with a hashtag. So some of these things have stood the test of time. I'm sure if we thought long and hard enough, we could find things that came and went real quick.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, more than ever, right? I mean, hashtags might be more popular than ever right now, almost to the point of too many.
Yeah, we've had that discussion too.
Yeah, it's kind of like if people, we've talked about organizations before, and it's kind of like if as an organization you haven't, or even as an organization or as a movement or as a program or whatever it might be, if you don't have your hashtag and kind of have that set that people know where to find that content, and if you're using multiple ones, then nobody really knows. And it's kind of become this faux pas, I think, of using social media and Twitter especially, for organizations. If you don't have one, it's become such a, everybody you know exactly what it's going to be for every conference and TV show and, everything that we do, that it's almost expected now as an organization to have that and to use one and not have multiple all over the place.
Yeah. Go ahead. I got a couple of thoughts or questions I want to throw at you. I'm curious to get your take on, please, if I may. So I've been doing, I read quite a bit, but I recently read, and then I listened to the Entree Leadership podcast. I don't know if you guys ever tune into that one. It's pretty good. And as I've been doing a little more driving now, so I listen a little bit more. But anyway, there's a guy by the name of Dr. Elmore who's written a book. Oh man, I just lost the name. My bad. Anyway, he's like a psychologist that does work on kind of like the generational type stuff. And so I've just been kind of wheeling. I have not paid much attention to worrying about what to call certain generations and all of that sort of stuff. But I guess now where I'm sitting, I putting a little more stock into it and just kind of looking at, okay, so you have this group of millennials, and I'm 42, so I'm like, depending on what you look at or who you take as gospel, it all depends, right? It's within a few years. So like one might say I'm a millennial, another would say it's like 40 and below kind of thing, right? Well, anyway, and then you have these generation Y and Z's coming up. I would put our children into that mix, right? And so he was discussing how, like, the differences, of course, like what I grew up with versus what, say, our children are growing up with, particularly with like technology. And he used the acronym EPIC. E was for experiential. P was that they want to be participatory. I was that they're image rich. And C was that they are connected, both kind of technologically and socially. And so I thought that was spot on. And it's interesting to listen to this guy talk about how, sometimes like I picture my dad saying, oh, these kids these days, And it's so interesting to think about us as educators and how we as the adults have grown up in a different time frame, and all this educational technology stuff, just technology in general, has just come booming out of nowhere within the last decade and a half-ish. And how are we adjusting to that in education? You know what I mean? And like, are we doing them justice for their future? I guess is what I'm trying to kind of get at with you guys. So thoughts on what I'm talking about there at all? Anywhere, take it anywhere you want.
One of the things that I was thinking of as you were talking about that is, you know, we think that education should be the way it was. Many educators think it should be the way it was when they were in school.
Yeah.
And I would venture to guess that our teachers in elementary thought the exact same thing. And
yep.
Neither of them were right. We aren't right if we say that, and they aren't right. They didn't have the same tools when we were in elementary that they had when they were growing up, and we definitely don't have the same tools. And I think you're right. I think that everyone thinks that the good old days were years ago, and we're not. We just struggle. We just had this conversation today. We just struggle adapting and making change and giving things up and taking into account that the world is different. Kids are different. You know, I think that the epic thing was absolutely spot on, like imagery and connectedness. And no, it's not the same. It shouldn't be. But it wasn't the same when we were kids from when our parents were kids.
Right. You know, and I think that, you know, you talk about something important, and I know Dana Boyd has written about this before, and The Social Lives of Network Teens. I think she wrote it in. This idea of nostalgia really getting in the way of progress, right? This idea of because this is the way things were, and that's what I know and I believe even, that it gets in the way of me looking at things being done a little bit differently. And social media, I think, has been one of the great examples of this. You know, there are a lot of people that decry, you know, social media as kind of the bane of society. It's kind of, you know, bad almost in all realms for all people. Not true. But when you allow nostalgia to kind of really be the driving force behind your thoughts and how you do whatever it is you do moving forward, you know, I think Dana Boyd's right. It really does become an inhibitor of any change or any progress.
Yeah, it's interesting that. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna say, like, the whole social media thing. So right now, just in the last, how long have we been on? 20 minutes. We have connected with Dustin Crump. I'm not sure where he's at. Anyway, wherever Dustin's at, with Eric Ewald, who is in Iowa City. We've connected with Jim York, who is in O'Neill. Like, we've connected with people who are 4 to 5 hours away.
Yeah, North Carolina, Wilmington.
Okay. So in 20 minutes.
Hoover in Texas.
Oh, is that where he's from? Oh, okay. Sometimes when I start messing around on Twitter, my internet likes to pause, so I didn't mess around too much with that. But my point is that there are a lot of issues have crept up because of social media, and I'm not denying that, but you gotta, you know, look at what we've already done tonight. Look at who we've already been able to connect with and chat with, and we wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, you know, I was thinking about this. We had a police parent social media online whatever presentation a while back, and I was sitting there listening, and I was thinking about, like, the invention of the car. Like, think about life before a car and how the car has evolved and what it's allowed us to do. I mean, my parents as kids never drove to the Black Hills to see Mount Rushmore because that really wasn't an option. The car has evolved, and it allows us to go places and do things that we've never been able to do before. It is used for bad things. It's used for robberies. It's used to run people down. I mean, there's a lot of negativity that goes along with it, but we don't get rid of it. We regulate it, and that's fine. But I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two. Everything every meaningful thing has good and bad things that go with it. Inevitably, anything that's good, someone is going to latch onto it and not use it for its intended purpose.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. You mentioned earlier too, Josh, the whole adapting to, and that same Dr. Elmore, and I pulled up the book. I haven't read this book yet. It's on my to-do list, but it's called it's called Marching Off the Map by Dr. Tim Elmore. But anyway, he talked about adapting versus adopting and being quick to, not too quick to adopt, but like be ready to adapt to different things. And that really stuck out to me in that podcast, because I was like, yeah, he's got a good point. You know, have we maybe been too quick to adopt some things in the technology world? Like I think of clickers, for example. Like in my district in Independence, previous district, like we were tossing those out and those bags had not even been opened, you know? And so anyway, it's like kind of jumping on this bandwagon of something without really, but at the same time, so here's an issue I have, or this is on internal stuff, dad stuff. So like, I don't know, like when I look at my son who's 2.5, so let's just say 16 years down the road, he's graduating from high school. 16 years is a long time in this world. And so like by the time he's 18, I'm not sure it's going to be the same exact route that he's going to need to take to be successful that I needed to take.
Right.
You know, and I value education. Of course, I'm getting my doctorate. I'm almost complete. Like I'm going to the terminal degree. So it's not that I don't value education, but I'm like, well, he might not need to go to college because he may learn how to code and write softwares and things for people. And I mean, who knows what that's going to look like? And he may not need college to do it. And so like, I don't know, I'm just in a place where I'm like, what is the best path for me and my kids, you know, as a dad, to guide them through this sort of thing? Because like, while I have really worked hard at this home with my wife to take a balanced approach to not having or being on devices all the time, they certainly have it at school, and I don't see that as bad. But to complete my thought, I had a good friend and colleague down here in Kansas City. I won't name names because I don't want to get into that in the districts and things. But I just talked to him tonight. We've called each other about screen time. And as his district is looking at buying a lot more devices, they were talking about, he's wondering about that, right? He is a dad and he is an educator, is going, I don't know, Kat. He's like, what do you think? He was just kind of feeling me out. And I just talked about the importance of balance. And so while I don't think we have to go way all in on one side, I think there's got to be this balance though, because if we don't, perhaps we're hurting those kids in some ways. And at the same time, if it's maybe too much, perhaps we're hurting them. So that's kind of where my struggle is right now, is trying to know, I guess, what that balance is, what that looks like.
And I've been very adamant that not all screen time is created equal. My teachers will be getting an email on Friday as we get ready for Hour of Code. And one of the passive aggressive comments that I have on here on the email is, I would setting up, we have a Symbaloo page that we use. I tweeted it out on my personal Twitter account, J_Allen. It's a Symbaloo page with different coding options for different levels of kids. And I said, turning them loose on that Symbaloo page requires just as much effort as you putting in a video, and they're going to be much more challenged and learning if they're doing that. And so, to your question, Kat, we talk to our kids in our house just about, hey, you know what? Yeah, you can be on the iPad, but read a book or do a game or something. Don't watch a video. Don't stare at it mindlessly. Like, interact with it. Do something. And I think that's one thing that we talked with parents about too, is that there is a difference between passive screen time and active screen time.
Yeah, I guess I would want to say though too that I was at the Iowa Digital Literacy Conference this last week, and last Friday, and the first presentation really was delivered as kind of a scare tactic. It was a lot about screen time. It was this conversation, but to one side, kind of to the nth degree. And I do want to say though that sometimes what we consider the passive consumption of screen time isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world if done in a way that balances all of the other things that we hope kids are doing. So, for instance, we talk a lot about if our kids come home and do we want them or require them to do their homework right away? I'm of the opinion that I don't, or at least I'm not going to make them do it. I'm at school all day. I come home. If that means that I spend a little bit of time sitting and watching videos on YouTube, I'm fine with that. But we know, it was like last night I was sitting with one of my daughters somewhere, and she was on her phone, and I said, hey, why don't you get off your phone? You're going to be on it in the car when we head home in a few minutes. Why don't you read your book? And so that's okay. And then on the way home, if she was watching some videos, well, I guess I don't care. So I want to be careful with also just kind of, and I don't think you're doing this, Josh, but saying that, having that passive consumption online or on screens is necessarily always a bad thing.
And I mean, I've just been a big arguer of the importance of educators being connected, because I think it brings something to their classroom that wasn't otherwise there before, right? And the idea of SAMR and redefining your classroom kind of thing, versus just having like Josh's, what is it? It's not technology not being an event, like kind of mentality as well, right? Like, so it's just interesting to think about us guys, how like our history together, how much we've learned and grown over the time since we've met and become friends and colleagues in the game, where you sat like back then. And if you just do some reflection and like look back a decade and go, man, okay, I remember like 10 years ago where I was, 5 years ago where I was, and then kind of sit about where am I at right now? Like, do you ever kind of sit and think that way, and then think like, what does 5 years out look like? What does 10 years out look like? And so that's where I'm staring at my 2.5-year-old going, this kid's 16 years away from graduating high school. That's a long time. When I think about how much I've grown in just a short period of time, say since I started using Twitter and got myself connected, like it blows my mind.
Yeah. And I would agree, Devin. Our restrictions, I guess, with the screen time and what have you, come after lengthy amounts of passive screen time.
Yeah.
We just to clarify that. Carson Clute checking in from Deshler, Nebraska, out in central Nebraska. Thumbs down on the 280 characters. Love Twitter for the quick, witty responses that come with a shorter limit. Facebook is for longer posts. Good call. Keep that garbage over there on Facebook.
That is a good call. We just had a conversation with some folks in my district recently about trying to help people best understand, to best match message with medium, and knowing what each of these tools is best used for. And I think that's one of those things that the sophistication level still needs to get better for lots and lots of people that are using Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and whatever else they might be using, is understanding which message works best with which medium, and kind of keeping it that way. It seems like we don't want to force fit things into a tool just because that's the one I'm using. So I think that's something we've been working with people I know in our district on, is how to match that message with medium.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any other thoughts that come up? Feel free to either tweet at us or use the hashtag dadsined. Thanks to Jim and everyone else for chiming in there. Eric Carson. Did Hoover actually have his real name on his anyway, shout out to the Hoover PE department down in Texas for chiming in as well. Dad moment of the week. I do have to say so we have a 1-year-old, as anyone who's watched the show knows. You guys can remember the stage of just starting the personalities, and she is definitely starting to show her personality, which is fabulous. The 2 older girls, we have this thing that we've done for a long time where I will they'll slide under my legs and I'll kind of throw them up in the air, but holding onto their hands, and then they bounce up and they kind of do the splits, and then I flip them over. So we call it under, up, jump, split, flip. So I was doing that with the two older girls tonight, and my 1-year-old comes up, has no idea what she's doing, but huge smile on her face and wants to do the same thing. So she's starting that, trying to be like her older sisters, and it's pretty funny to watch. My son has been organizing all of his Legos by color, which is very much a trait from his dad, doing crap like that. So Avery tried to help out with that as well tonight, which doesn't go as well with a 1-year-old. But anyway, I took notice of it. She's starting to run over to greet me when I come home and do the flip thing with that the older sisters do. So pretty fun to be in that stage. People always ask, what stage of kids do you like the best? And I really don't have a favorite. There's so many things I like about each stage, but this is definitely being a not quite half-year-old. It's kind of a fun part of it. So anyway, Devin.
Yeah, mine is, I guess, kind of one of those bummer things. I started basketball practice this last week. We're into our second week now. And I kind of always said, gosh, I didn't coach because of my kids and I wouldn't miss stuff. And it just so happens, and I've done a pretty good job, I think, the last couple of years of trying to make sure that anytime I get to my kids' stuff before basketball comes, and it just so happens this year Claire in 6th grade has a band thing this week and a choir thing next week, and they both fall on days where I have games, and it's like, even if it were practice, I would miss practice or be late or leave early, and I can't really do that for games. And so it's kind of one of those things where I'm a little bit bummed, and I kind of look back and think, I said I wouldn't do this. Like I said I wouldn't miss my kids' stuff while coaching, and I'm going to miss 2 things this next 2 weeks. And so kind of bummed about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Kat?
Well, so I'm going to have to go with my wife and I invited a family over for dinner the other night, and now we're helping this gentleman that has a couple kids, and the mom / fiance is not in a good state. She's got some mental issue things going on, and so anyway, we are now kind of taking care of a couple little ones on top of what we have, and my wife has kind of signed up for that. And since my job position has changed and I'm at home a little bit more here and there, that means I'm helping as well. And but what's been really cool to see is how my kids are reacting to the situation. That these 2 little girls are like 1, and then I think the other one's around 3. And they're both very petite little girls, and they're super cute. And it's just been fun to watch even my 2.5-year-old kind of play with this little one and just kind of take them in, you know what I mean? And it's been really neat to see how all of my children are, I guess, adjusting to that the limelight isn't all on them. And I don't know. So there's just a lot going on in our house right now. I'm proud of the kids and just watching them through that. I'm proud of my wife, and like, we're just been kind of on this idea of doing more, being more, and giving more. And so this is kind of part of what we've been up to, and just another thing that's kind of fallen into our lap. So anyway, good stuff.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can, fortunately, we all have jobs that provide well for our family, and our kids don't have to struggle. So anytime that we get these opportunities to show our kids, people who really do need help, and they respond well, it's always a good thing. So before we get to our sharing is caring, Superfan Bill checking in. Superfan shooting for 560?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He says I need because I talk too much.
Just for Catlett. But that would be double. Good math by Bill there. So double the 280 for those of you not with a calculator at home.
Double the 280, and it's probably still half as much as Cat needs.
He had to use his calculator to get that added.
Notice Devin didn't say what that number was. He just said twice that.
Come on. You know that. 11,
all right. Sharing is caring. I am going to, boys, I invested a little bit of money in our home videotaping. My goal is to have the best home videos on the planet. So I bought a DJI Osmo mobile gimbal. Do you know what this is?
No.
So Taylor Siebert, good friend who runs Stripe TV and Class Intercom out in central Nebraska, phenomenal guy. A couple years ago, he says, "Hey, you guys are doing a 5K for Nita. I want to videotape it." And it's like, okay, well, whatever. So he pulls out this DJI Osmo. Basically, it's a stabilizer. So if you've ever seen like fancy video work where they've got like bigger ones, they're two-handed, and or like even on TV, you see the camera guys that have it's like on their waist or whatever. So this is a handheld one. It's weighted in the handle, so it steadies your hand, but then it's battery powered, and so it stabilizes your camera so that it's not as shaky. And I tell you what, my son had it. Of course, every night now it's like, can I go try that out again? So he was riding his hoverboard with my iPhone in the stabilizer, and it is fantastic. The smoothness of the video is just awesome. And my wife, as I'm sitting at our band concert, my kids' music concert a couple weeks ago, knowing that I had my eye on one, I'm like, man, like this video looks terrible. Like, I can't hold my arm up for this long. I can't wait till I get that thing. And so I get it. My wife goes, "You're not going to be that dad holding that thing up and embarrassing the kids at the music concert, are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And it's awesome. So I pulled it up on the store, and I'll tweet out the link. It's regularly $300. I got a refurbished one on Amazon for $160. And like some things I'm not about refurbished. This one I thought I could try, for half the price. And I am so darn excited about it. So anyway, DJI. I talked with Taylor. I said, "Yeah, do I really want to spend, the $300?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's worth it." So there's others that you can buy from other companies that you've never heard of. DJI is the same company that makes all the really cool drones. So always, for stuff like this, it's kind of sometimes nice to buy it from a reputable company rather than a random one on Amazon. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway, I'll tweet that out when one of you guys is talking. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. I'm going to share quick an article, and it's been around for a little while, but when I was able to go to, we're part of a few districts that are part of a Google EDU think tank. That's kind of a cool thing that we get to meet with these folks from all around the country, about 6 or 7, 8 districts. And one of the things that we looked at the last time we were all together in Mountain View back in October was the idea of psychological safety and how to make your teams work really, really well. And I'm going to share an article that highlighted a lady from Google named Julia Rozovsky, and it was all about, she did all this research around what makes great teams at Google work. And they had something called Project Aristotle that they started in 2012 to try and determine what makes really great teams and how they can improve even the teams that they have that aren't working quite as well. And we've been then now taking kind of some of this stuff around what makes great teams and psychological safety in our schools and trying to implement some of that. So the article I'll share, and it's just titled "What Google Learned from Its Quest to Build the Perfect Team," and I just think it's really interesting stuff that could be used in schools as well as in business.
Nice. Look at you being a lot smarter than me on sharing is caring. Kat, so you should have book. Did you get one of those? Go ahead. What'd you say?
I said, but the thing is, I might go actually buy one of those things you're talking about.
Yeah,
that's true.
Josh, like, does this thing have like a pole that goes up? Like, does it extend up, or is it just a handle that I'm seeing that you share?
The handle does not extend. Like, that's as tall as it is.
Gotcha.
That the adapter in the middle does expand to fit your phone, so it'll fit different. So I have a 7 Plus, and it fits in there.
Mm-hmm.
The pole does, so you have to balance it at the beginning. So you can kind of see, or maybe if you scroll through one of the other pictures, you can see, but on the back there is a knob, and so that arm, that curved arm along the side, does pull out to help balance your phone above the handle, but it does not extend up or down. It doesn't get any taller than that.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. That's cool. All right, so mine, I'm going to go with, I just finished up Chip Gaines from HGTV's Fixer Upper wrote a book called Capital Gains, and there's a subtitle I'm forgetting that has to do with like learning from the stupid things that he did. I really enjoyed it. It's an easy read in the realm of, especially if you're familiar with the show and you enjoy him. He's fun to kind of listen to and watch on TV, and it comes out in his book. But really enjoyed his perspective on, I'll just say, kind of life and working hard and treating people with respect. And there's a couple parts though I really enjoyed that he talked about a gal who became kind of his assistant, and where he's at with like training someone and bringing someone along and putting them in opportunity to learn. And so he shares in this one chapter about this young girl comes on board, and he basically goes into her like a week into the job and says, okay, like I need you to pull the permits for this place we're going to be doing, and basically kind of puts her in charge of it. And she doesn't have a clue how to do it. And instead of him feeding her the information on how to do it and where to go and who to call, he just kind of leaves her to swim, you know? And so then she treads water, gets herself to a point where she gets going pretty well, gets all of that in order. As the home is being renovated, unfortunately, she misses the permits on the electrical, and they hang the drywall and they have to tear it off in order to like check, you know, for the codes or whatever. And he says, I would pay that money in drywall that we had to tear out in the labor, because now she'll never screw it up again. Like, and it really, I was like, man, what a great boss. Like, you know, to have the kind of wherewithal to allow this person to, it wasn't that he wasn't purposely trying to make her fail, but it was like, hey, I'm going to put you in position and you gotta swim. And then if you make some mistakes, I'm going to be here, you know, like when you start to drown, I'll pull you out. And so anyway, it was just little stuff like that. He has little nuggets in there that I really enjoyed. And that was one of them. I thought, as I raise my kids, like I want to be that dad. Like I want them to try it on their own. I don't always want to be bailing them out, you know, and like, I think at times I've done well with that. And then there's other times where I feel like I've failed. And then they're, you know, reliant on you. And so like, anyway, it's good stuff. Good book, worth the read. I always enjoy his perspectives.
Yeah, we do. You know, that's one of the things we struggle with doing Breakout EDU with our kids, is teachers that want to give them the answer right away and like give them. We had one today. I was, you know, one of the clues it was first grade, so we're all doing one box, and the ones that had writing on it, like I kind of read to the kids because a little bit bigger words. But there was one that didn't have writing on it, and the teacher started to try to explain it. I was like, no, just leave it. Don't worry about it. Let them do it. And sure, I gave her a hard time. I said, look, all the kids are doing it. They all figured it out without your help. And you know, I agree, Kat. If turning people loose and letting them do that, and it's funny to see the teachers, you know, in this breakout setting that can't do that or really struggle with that. So,
Yeah,
agree. All right, before we go, Dustin chiming in. I think screen time is great as long as it's controlled, not too much time, and kid-friendly apps. And yeah, when I hear or see kids just go nuts on the regular YouTube, I mean, YouTube Kids isn't that great, but you know, just kind of sends a shiver up my spine. And he is in the 140 camp as well. 280 is too much. That's the reason that I love Twitter, is so people can keep it short and sweet. Absolutely agree. Any last thoughts before we close, gentlemen? Perfect. Nice. Good. Glad that went well there. we're going to be back in 2 weeks. Kara Nollmeyer is going to join us to talk about her new book and what it's really like working with Kat. We have Bill's thoughts and perspective, and we're going to get Kara's as a former colleague of Catlet's. And then December 13th, we have the wonderful, fantastic Kristen Zimke is going to come talk to us about technology with little kids. She is a phenomenal person. Great to chat with. Looking forward to that. So 2 shows left, and then we're winter hibernation for a month.
That's right.
It is hoodie weather around here, so I'm looking forward to it. All right. We will see everybody in 2 weeks.